In 1936, the British Empire still extended over vast areas of the globe. It was a time when young men completed their education by serving as administrators in distant lands. But usually, the countries changed them more than they could change the countries. In the port of Sowa in 1936, a ship arrives. John is lost and confused, sitting on the dock with his belongings, expecting to be met. A native young man named Bansai, dressed in tribal clothing, introduces himself to John Truscott and welcomes him with a firm handshake. Bansai rows the kayak that he and John are in to take them to the village. There, the locals react to the colonizer as if he is a spectacle. Bansai takes John to meet his superior, Henry Bullard, the governor of the district who holds full authority in this British colony. Bansai, on the other hand, is expected to become the headman of the Longhouse in 2 years. Henry wonders why John is there, as he seems overqualified for the job. John explains that he has come to carry on his father's legacy. His father was also a district officer who had a plan to educate the Iban community before he died in the war. John sees it as his duty to educate the primitive people. Henry, however, believes John's self-righteous attitude will be knocked out of him after spending some time in Sawa. After briefly describing their violent but talented cook, Famous, Henry informs John that he has been invited to the local longhouse of Gat Kanong for the next day. Henry tells him Bansai will pick him up, though John is still unclear about his actual job. John is escorted to Malacca, Bansai's father, by a crowd of enthusiastic and curious native children and women. Malacca, the headman of the longhouse, serves John rice wine. John refuses to drink while on duty, but Bansai warns him that refusing would be considered an insult. John quickly gulps down the rice wine, observed closely by the woman who served him. She stares at him with fascination before walking away and letting another woman serve the next round. The festivities continue until later that night when John watches an exotic dance performed by the tribe's women. He is mesmerized by Selma, the same girl who served him earlier. When she finishes her dance, she removes her necklace and ties it around John's neck, marking him as obligated to entertain the people. John recites an English poem no one understands, then picks up Bansai and does a couple's dance with him, making everyone laugh. The night ends with John vomiting from the alcohol. As he drifts to sleep, he sees blurry visions of tribesmen holding a man's severed head. The next day, John complains to Henry for letting him embarrass himself. Henry explains that the Iban people found him funny because their society is built around drinking, violent sports, and practical jokes. John is shocked to learn that the Iban beheaded Chinese miners for trespassing, and now it's his job to win their trust. Malacca then brings Selma to John. She will now live with him and perform wheelie duties. In frank terms, she will be his sleeping dictionary, sleeping with him and teaching him her language. Selma already knows English, as her mother had also been a sleeping dictionary. John is concerned Selma may have been coerced, but Henry explains that Selma chose John herself. His contract forbids marriage for 3 years, during which time he may feel lonely. The idea is that he will return to England with a proper English wife, and Selma will go back to her people as a fluent English speaker. This system has worked for generations. Still, John refuses to compromise on principle. He proposes they learn from each other without sleeping together. Selma reluctantly agrees but is clearly annoyed and offended by the rejection. That night, it rains. John discovers ants have infested the journal containing his father's plans. Overwhelmed by the rain and cultural isolation, he tries to speak with Selma, who is further upset by his coldness. The next morning, Bansai hands John a bag containing what he claims are Chinese heads. The villagers laugh when Selma opens it and finds monkey heads inside. Furious, she storms off. John attempts to assert his authority, threatening to confiscate pigs if the real heads aren't delivered by morning. This makes the villagers laugh even more. Back at the bungalow, Famous introduces John and Selma to Jasmine, his assistant, who gives John a suggestive look. John realizes Famous has assumed he is gay due to his refusal to sleep with Selma. John and Selma argue, and she storms off. The next day, John finds Selma living under the bungalow because she cannot return to the longhouse after being rejected. He apologizes and reassures her that he finds her beautiful. He only refused her because of his morals. She gives him another chance. John also negotiates with Famous about his drinking. Later, John meets Aggie, who is clearing a jungle area for a croquet lawn. She tosses coins into the bushes and sends children to retrieve them. clearing the vegetation in the process. She wants the area ready for her daughter Cecilia's arrival. That night, John and Selma have a brief conversation in both languages. John shares that he says goodnight to his father each night before bed. They stand close beneath the doorway. Selma asks if he is a virgin. He admits he is waiting until marriage. She says this will make him a poor lover. John reaches through the wall partition and holds her hand, confessing he has never met anyone like her. She teases him about not dancing like an Englishman. They both fall asleep. John is later seen interacting with village children. Banzai criticizes the English education system that John is trying to bring, saying it didn't help him even as the chief's son. The two challenge each other to an underwater breath-holding contest. Though Banzai is a long-standing champion, John wins by using an oxygen tank. He uses this to prove that English technology makes life easier. Later, John hands over the heads to Henry, who mentions that his daughter Cecilia is arriving for Christmas. He invites John to dinner. That night, John and Selma bond over a book both of their parents once read to them. Selma proves she can read English and knows the story by heart. John teaches her to write words on his hand and arm. Their touches become sensual, and they kiss. They end up making love, though John finishes too early. Selma promises to teach him, and they spend the night exploring each other's bodies while learning to please one another. However, Selma always leaves before dawn. According to Ibn tradition, if a couple wakes up together 5 mornings in a row, they are considered engaged. At the dinner with Henry, Aggie, and Cecilia, who was raised in the village until age 5 and then sent to England, shares that she is now an anthropologist who wrote her thesis on the Ibn people. She is shocked by some of what John has learned. When the tradition of the sleeping dictionary comes up, she laughs dismissively. Henry tries to change the topic. Neville, another guest, mocks the idea of a real relationship between an Ibn woman and an Englishman. John argues with him, defending the Ibn. Henry becomes angry and warns John to remember his duties. That night, John returns to Selma. Dressed in her native attire, she embraces him and they kiss and dance. Cecilia later photographs John communicating fluently with the locals. He explains there's a land dispute between 2 longhouses, and he plans to settle it with a competition instead of taking sides. Cecilia is fascinated by Selma's beauty and photographs her. Despite Selma's discomfort, John's attention is diverted when a Yakata girl's body washes up on shore. He learns of other casualties and decides to visit the Yakata people, taking Selma as a translator and Banzai as a mediator. Henry and Aggie object, worried about John's safety. Aggie urges John to pursue Cecilia, promising she could help him build schools for the Ibon. Neville has already proposed to Cecilia, who is leaving soon for 2 years. Aggie is frustrated by John's lack of initiative. John apologizes to Selma for Cecilia's rudeness and insists their relationship is special. But Selma, angry, says she will never be enough for him. Despite being half English, she is Ibn, and he can only rule her, not love her. She says their relationship is only physical, which devastates John. He sleeps alone that night. John and his team enter Yakata territory, where the people are skilled in jungle camouflage. They are fierce warriors. In a letter to Cecilia, John describes his experiences and plans to visit her on leave. The team finds more bodies, then stumbles upon a disease-ridden Yakata camp. A Dutchman shoots at John, but Banzai saves him. They discover a mining site where Dutch miners are secretly extracting silver. The Yakata believe the illness came from John's group. John realizes the Dutch poisoned the rice to make it seem like a natural disease, forcing the tribe to abandon the land. He tells the Yakata the truth, knowing they will take revenge on the Dutch. Seeing Selma sick opens Jack's eyes to how afraid he is of losing her, and he confesses that he wants to stay with her forever. Selma knows they'll have to run away if they want to be together, but Jack still believes in Serac and has faith in the civility of the English people. The Yaka people gift Selma and Jack turquoise bracelets as a symbol of gratitude and acceptance. However, Jack's naive belief in English justice proves misguided when Henry tries to convince him that he too once fell for a local woman but chose to fulfill his duty instead. Jack takes a stand, declaring that he intends to marry Selma. Their raised voices bring Aggie into the room, and she pulls Henry aside for a private talk. Meanwhile, Malaka urges Selma to find a husband within the longhouse, but she refuses to betray Jack. Banzai privately informs Selma that Henry is threatening to charge both Jack and Banzai with the miner's murder unless Selma gives Jack up. At the same time, Aggie offers Jack a way out. Take a year-long leave to England. If he refuses, he'll be deported and imprisoned for 10 years. Shocked by how ruthless his fellow Englishmen are, Jack rushes to see Selma, who is in captivity and heartbroken by their fate. As Jack tries to free her, Henry and Neville arrive. Henry gives them one last warning, but neither Jack nor Selma is willing to let go of each other. Just as Henry is about to charge Jack with murder, Selma gives in to protect him. A year later, John marries Cecilia in London. On his wedding night, he takes off the turquoise bracelet. Cecilia assumes John must have had a sleeping dictionary like other officers, but is relieved that at least now he won't be clueless in bed. Jack assures her that his sleeping dictionary was married off to Banzai. John writes to Henry, saying that Cecilia wants to be close to her parents and that he wants to continue his work. They're returning to Sarek to begin a new chapter. The Iban children from the first school welcome John and Cecilia with the English poem he once read with Selma. They also spot Neville, as bitter as ever. Cecilia notices Jack is distracted, often glancing at the Iban while the English cling to their luxuries. That night, Cecilia tries to seduce Jack and bites his shoulder, assuming Selma did the same. Jack finds it strange. Embarrassed, Cecilia covers herself. Neville has already told her about Jack and Selma's forbidden romance. Cecilia tells Jack that Selma is now happily married with a son. Jack swears he hasn't seen her in over a year. Just then, they hear a noise, likely Famous, drunk again. Cecilia senses that Famous still prefers Selma and asks Jack to fire him. The next day, Jack takes Famous to Neville's bungalow and finds out Neville beats his sleeping dictionary. Furious, Jack tells the woman to fight back if Neville ever touches her again. Neville, who's still infatuated with Cecilia, is shaken. Later, Jack overhears Aggie telling Cecilia not to fall in love with Jack, advising her to treat the marriage as a convenient arrangement. Jack walks in and implies that he needs privacy with Cecilia. Jack eventually sees Selma again by the riverbank, cuddling her son as Banzai stands behind her. Jack watches them in silence, heartbroken. Suspicious, he runs to Famous to confirm his doubt, and learns that Selma's son is actually his. Jack offers to bribe Famous to arrange a meeting with Selma, but she's made it clear she doesn't want to see him. Instead, Jack sends Neville to a leech-infested location, while Famous reports that Neville's dictionary has been beaten again and needs Selma's help. Selma walks into Neville's bungalow and is shocked to find Jack waiting. He begs to see his son Mandar. Selma doesn't acknowledge him at first, but finally allows him a brief moment with the boy. She reminds Jack that she'll be executed if anyone sees them together. She insists Mandar is now Banzai's son, as he chose to marry her even knowing she was pregnant. Jack recites the poem he once read with Selma to their son. Later, Aggie sees Jack building a toy boat and assumes he's impregnated Cecilia, but he denies it. Aggie admits she didn't stay in Sarek for duty. She stayed to keep Henry away from a native girl. She warns Jack not to make the same mistake with her daughter. Nevertheless, Jack secretly meets Selma again as Mandar plays with the toy boat. Neville spots the boat floating down the river and becomes suspicious. That night, Banzai sneaks into Jack's bedroom and cuts his arm. Cecilia wakes up in horror to find Selma concerned for Jack. Banzai is caught and put on trial. Henry is devastated, as he once considered Banzai one of the finest warriors he'd known. But he now must sentence him to death for attempting to murder a colonial officer. Henry also reveals that Selma is his daughter. That's why he originally entrusted her to Jack, but he doesn't want her to know, believing it's better left unsaid. Now it's Jack's turn to make the same hard choice. At the trial, Jack gives Banzai several chances to claim temporary madness, but Banzai remains honorable. Jack adjourns court saying he'll announce the sentence tomorrow. That night, Selma pleads with Jack to save Banzai, reminding him that he is a good father to Mandar. Cecilia watches silently from her room. Later, Iban women attack Selma, but Henry jumps in and rescues her in front of his English family. With a heavy heart, Jack sentences Banzai to death. Henry is jailed, and the scaffold to hang Banzai is built by his own mourning people. Selma sneaks into Henry's bungalow and overhears his family plotting to keep Jack tied to Cecilia. Henry gives Selma the keys to free Banzai. Jack helps him escape and gives him a gun for protection. Jack proposes to Selma and tells her the time and place to meet so they can run away together. Meanwhile, Aggie cruelly assigns Selma as Neville's new sleeping dictionary. Cecilia reveals her pregnancy to Jack that same night. Jack is stuck at dinner with Cecilia and her parents, while Neville forces himself on Selma. Famous attacks Neville, allowing Selma and Mandar to escape. Cecilia tells Jack she doesn't want to be a second choice. She wants real love too. She hugs him goodbye and promises not to say anything until morning. Selma and Mandar, drenched in rain, arrive at the dock, but Jack hasn't arrived yet. By the time Jack gets there, the ship has left. Fortunately, Famous is still there and tells Jack that Selma thought he wasn't coming, so she went to the Dutch territory, heading toward the old mine. Henry finds Selma trying to escape, but, instead of shooting her, gives her his gun. Selma reveals she always knew he was her father. He hugs her, for the first and last time, before she sails away. Cecilia and Henry stop Aggie from causing further harm. Despite her efforts, she still sends Neville on a manhunt. Eventually, Jack finds Selma on a mountaintop, using her photo for guidance. They reunite just before Neville finds them. But the Yakata people appear and kill Neville in time to save them. The Yakata tribe invites Selma and Jack to join them in building a new village. The next day, they happily accept, because all they need in the world is each other and their son, wherever life takes them. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you on the next video.